Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you. I'm David Menzies in for Ezra Levent, who's on assignment. And this is Battleground on Friday, May the 25th. Thank you so much for joining me here. And we already have a technical difficulty of this little computer. There you go. See, machines are supposed to make our lives easier, folks, but this one always makes mine harder. Now, as you know, this is a relatively new show, and we talk about things in the news. We look at your feedback. We discuss that. And I think right off the hopper, for those in Ontario, wow, the new Form Research poll, ladies and gentlemen, it shows the NDP flirting with the majority. How did this happen? Just weeks ago, the Ontario PCs had I think a 20-point lead in the race. But as of right now, almost half of Ontarians, that's 47%, said they would support the NDP. A third, 33%, said they would support the PCs. And 14% said they would support the Liberals. Well, there's some good news, at least there. Now, I guess the fundamental question, I'd love to hear your feedback, is what went wrong? Like I said, an almost 20-point lead just weeks ago. The PCs under Doug Ford should be cruising right now. I'm no fan of the NDP government. Saw what happened in 1990 to 1995 under Bob Rae. Of course, Bob Rae and his fiscal disaster, he almost looks like a fiscal conservative compared to what Kathleen Wynne has done to the province. But already it's a lot of ominous signals coming from Andrea Horwath. For example, making Ontario a sanctuary province. Hey, why not? Who cares what the makers say? We need more takers. Come on in, come on down, as they say on the Price is Right. And then, some kind of really bizarre policies. I mean, the economy is the most important thing. I think if that's 1A is energy. And if you look what Andrea Horwath and her party is supporting, folks, the idea of a job creation program in Pickering, home of the nuclear power plant, and the job creation wouldn't be building a new nuclear station. It would be demolishing the current one. There's actually the license for that power plant expires on August 31st of this year. There is an application to extend that another 10 years. So when you think about it, what Andrea Horwath is saying, under the auspices of job creation, all these great temporary jobs to tear the plant down. Meanwhile, 4,500 direct jobs are toast. And according to the Chamber of Commerce in Ontario, 7,500 ancillary jobs are gone. Oh, and by the way, all that power that's now gone from the grid, well, I guess we'll have to go to Hydro-Quebec and buy some more of their energy. Anyways, with those two policies, sanctuary province, what she's planning for the energy file, I'm sure you can share some of my discomfort with where this province might end up going if indeed Andrea Horwath becomes premier. But it's interesting. Speaking of the NDP, some troublesome signs just breaking this morning, as a matter of fact. A couple of candidates with shady past. Taslim Riaz, she had a 2013 Facebook posting. Well, you look at that. It's a picture of Hitler saluting, and the quote says, "If you don't like a rule, just follow it, reach on the top, and change the rule." Now, folks, I'll say this about using quotes and images of Adolf Hitler. If you're not in support of the Fuhrer, clearly say that, put some tagline that this was the most despicable person to acclaim to power in the 20th century. Otherwise, it kind of looks to me, maybe you're supporting Hitler and his quotation mark. She also had some disturbing things to say about the Canadian military. And the idea of liberals and conservatives being party to the slaughter of her Muslim brothers and sisters. That's why you should support the NDP. And of course, this dates back to when Jack Layton was still alive, and to throw your support behind Jack. So it's going to be very interesting to see Andrea Horwath get out of this pickle. Does she dump this candidate? Because that seems to be the way it rolls these days, folks. I mean, we all saw, in terms of the Conservatives, what happened to Tanya Granick-Allen just about 2.5 weeks ago, I suppose. She was unceremoniously dumped by the Progressive Conservatives because she had old social media posts that seemed to suggest that she was against gay marriage and she was against the idea of what I call the hateful haberdashery that is the burqa. Here's the thing. If she has to walk the plank, and keep in mind, Tanya Granick-Allen was the kingmaker for PC leader Doug Ford. If there's no Tanya Granick-Allen and her supporters, Doug Ford loses on the first ballot at the leadership convention to Christine Elliott. But welcome to politics, folks, where it's what have you done for me lately, baby, because Doug Ford made her walk the plank. And this ties into, I think, why there is a resurgence right now in NDP popularity. I think when Doug made that misstep, and I really think it was Doug's advisors, but let's be honest, he's the leader. He can trump his advisors' advice. But when Doug made that misstep, he took maybe 20% of the base of social conservatives right out of the picture. So it's not as though these people are going to vote Liberal in NDP. I think, folks, they're just not going to vote. They're just going to sit at home. They're going to decline their ballot. Maybe they'll do a protest vote Trillium or Alliance or Libertarian, who knows. But it won't be going to the PC party. And I did an informal poll myself at the last Toronto debate. There was a group of Tanya Granick-Allen supporters outside the City Toronto studios. And I asked every one of them, are you voting PC? And they all said no, every one. They didn't say who they were voting for, but they're not voting PC. And now we see these new numbers from Forum Research. Ooh, this is very dire indeed. We have a super chat. I hear my Mrs. Producer saying into my ear, and I am just looking for that super chat right now. And I just cannot see it. Hang on, folks. First time doing this. Okay, then. Well, we will get back to that super chat, and in the meantime, I want to the mail tab. Okay, hang on, folks, just 1 second. Mail tab. Okay, I am looking for the super chat. Okay. I apologize. Again, these machines are supposed to help us, but we all saw how that worked out with Skynet and the Terminator films. But you know what? I would like to get your opinions on the ascension of the NDP and the decline of the PCs. Maybe I'm missing something out there. I think we can all agree that the Liberals are toast. This is more and more looking like a catastrophic election campaign for the Liberals. I mean, they're flirting with not even being an official party with the way the numbers are coming. So I would like to see that. Also, on the subject of what was in the news lately in terms of the Ontario election, folks, and we'll talk about other issues too, but this is one of the most important elections, I think, in Ontario's history, was Doug Ford's promise to bring beer and wine into the convenience store channel. And of course, nothing shows liberal hypocrisy at its worst when you talk about, even in the 21st century, this whole idea of beer and wine being liberated from essentially the government monopoly, the LCBO, and then there's the beer store monopoly as well. And the reason I mean hypocrisy is you have Kathleen Wynne acting in horror that I certainly don't want to see liquor right next to the candy bars. And here's the deal, folks. In Ontario, there are more than 200 agency LCBO stores. Now, what that means is, in those communities, say Carleton Place, that has a population that's too small to support an LCBO standalone store, then suddenly the mom and pop variety store, suddenly they're socially responsible enough to carry beer and wine and hard liquor, I might add. And there's more than 200 of these stores. So how do you possibly square that somebody in a small community like Carleton Place or Beaton is socially responsible enough to sell it, and the people living in those communities are socially responsible enough to buy it, yet people in Windsor, Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa, London, Windsor, you name it, those retailers aren't socially responsible enough, and the people aren't either. Here's that super chat I was looking for. All right, still not voting, David? If you think Notley is bad for Alberta, wait for the Horwath-ageddon. That's a good one. This is about to befall Ontario. Suck it up and vote. You know what? Well, I am voting. And I don't know if I'll be wearing my burqa into the advanced poll like I did the last election. I might do that to prove a point. But nevertheless, I am voting. Folks, this pains me. And it really does. This is not shtick. I have been a big Ford Nation booster, and I love the people in Ford Nation. Loved Rob Ford. You know, this goes back more than a decade, you know, when I was mocked and laughed at for predicting Rob Ford would be the next mayor of Toronto. But, you know, I saw Doug making the same promises over and over on the circuit. You know, promises that we will not be beholden to the elites, that we'll have grassroots nomination meetings. And then you have, you know, about a dozen, or I think it was like 19 candidates appointed. And some of those candidates, like Meredith Cartwright in Toronto Centre, hardcore liberal. I mean, what's the deal with that? So that's a double negative there. It also broke my heart that he made Tanya Granick-Allen walk the plank. What he should have done is he should have taken a page from Trump. He should have ignored what the mainstream media was clamoring for. Oh, what about this? Look at what she said back then, and stuck by her. And even there, within the party today, we have a double standard. Andrew Lawton, who used to be with the Rebel, he's running. Andrew Lawton's a good man. He has said stuff about Islam, about homosexuality, in the context of a radio broadcaster, an entertainer that has been dredged up. And I'm sad to see that Andrew had to, or was told to, play the mental illness card. I know he struggled with that in the past, and I would never mock him for that. But the whole idea that there was an 8 or 9 period of his life where he's now saying everything I said during that period of time was due to mental illness, I think that was a terrible gift to give to the enemies of conservatives. The idea, well, look at Andrew Lawton. He's saying if you have these kind of conservative viewpoints, you're afflicted with mental illness. Anyways, Andrew's been allowed to stay on. And then, of course, our expose from last year, let's not forget about Goldie Gameri, the Persian cat, who has gone on social media, allegedly, under her alias, the Persian cat, saying things like Christianity is gay and Jesus is worm food and Stephen Harper was a national embarrassment. And again, a lifelong liberal. Well, why are these people, why is someone like her in this party, and why can she get away with that kind of comment? So I know maybe I'm being a bit of a naive chump, but I stated publicly that I have trouble with the idea of voting for Doug Ford or my local PC candidate in Richmond Hill. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to vote. And that doesn't mean I might be persuaded to change my mind in less than 2 weeks. We'll see. But as it stands now, the platform for the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian candidate, that there is one in my riding, is running. So that's the front runner now. Because, you know, folks, you gotta, Doug Ford has got to mean what he says, and he's got to say what he means. And he's not doing so right now. And I think he's getting terrible advice, really bad advice, and he should stand up to that. But going back to the subject at hand, one thing I do completely support Doug Ford on is the idea of beer and wine in convenience stores. And think about this, folks. This is not just a PC party initiative. Did you know that the biggest petition ever assembled in the history of Ontario was one organized by the Ontario Convenience Store Association called Free Our Beer, to bring beer into the corner store? More than 400,000 signatures. That goes back 5 years ago. 400,000 signatures delivered to the Ontario legislature saying, get this done. And already, forget about the agency stores, all convenience stores, or certainly most of them, sell age-restricted products. Tobacco, lottery tickets, adult magazines, fireworks. Why do we lose our stuff when it comes to beverage alcohol? And here's another thing. There has been a study that showed that the challenge and refusal rates by the private sector convenience stores are actually better than the government-run LCBO chain and the beer store chain. And I'll tell you why it's better, folks. If these operators get caught in a sting selling to a minor, well, you're going to be fined. You'll eventually lose your license to sell your age-restricted products, and therefore you are out of business. Yet, if some of you might remember back in the Sun News Network days, we had a little caper where we had a 15-year-old boy wearing a burqa go into several LCBO stores buying hard liquor, Sambuca, and not once was he challenged and refused. Not once was he asked for ID. And when we revealed that, guess what? Did any of the employees face a suspension? Not that I want that to happen, but we know what would happen if that was a convenience store selling a pack of smokes to an underage person. Did those LCBO stores have a suspension of operation of a few weeks or a few months? No. The government simply shrugged and said, you know what? Stuff happens. We'll try better next time. It's an abominable situation, and this is why I think that's a winning point for Doug Ford. Kathleen Wynne and Andrea Horwath are against the idea of beer and wine in the corner store, which is, of course, all the more reason to support the idea. I tend to look at Kathleen Wynne and Andrea Horwath and see what they say on an issue, and then I will believe or support the precise opposite. Now, let me turn to some of the response. Okay. Anyone know a better country to live in? Because I will go. Booze sold in general stores in Martintown and Avonmore, Ontario. That's from Faye Knox. Now, I haven't been to those those communities, Faye, but I would assume they are too small to house an LCBO standalone store. And again, I say, so what? If the policy is we can only entrust government to sell liquor, then why does that rule change based on the population of a community? Total hypocrisy. And what we have from Vicky Villeneuve, I am still hoping for a Ford win. We need to make this happen. And you know what, Vicky? Given the choice of the three parties, I'm with you. I am with you 100%. Despite the warts and blemishes that Ford has, you know, the broken promises, which I wish never happened and didn't have to happen. That's a very important point. He didn't have to go down that route. But he's done this to himself by alienating social conservatives when he didn't have to. Having said that, given a Liberal NDP or PC government running this province, oh my goodness, PC 100%. And Jonathan Bryant writes, you would think that Sanctuary Ontario would kill the NDP. Well, you would think, but I don't know. I think we now live in a society that there's less, it's less about being a maker and more about being a taker. It's I want free this, free that, free education, free dental, free prescriptions. You know, folks, I think there's a change in the mindset with a large segment of the population. And what I'm saying by that is, in yesterdecade, you know, you'd be at the side of the road and you'd see a beautiful Cadillac drive by. And you'd say, wow, what a car. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to get an education. I'm going to get myself to a point in life where I can go into a Cadillac dealership and buy that Eldorado. And now it's, why does that guy have a Cadillac and I don't have a car? How do I get that wealth redistributed so that I can get a car? That seems to be a mindset out there. I think it's been brought about by decades of indoctrination in the school, not just post-secondary, but in elementary schools even, that this leftist Marxist mindset has set in. And it's something that we're going to have to deal with because, as you all know, folks, by looking at your deductions on your pay stub, nothing is free. What else do we have here? Okay, Zed Hero, thoughts on the Tommy Robinson arrest? Well, it is breaking news. This is precisely what Ezra is hard at work right now. From what I understand, Tommy was filming outside the court, and supposedly this is some breach. Folks, this is another heartbreaker for me to see what a bastion of free speech that the UK is, or the UK was, is now becoming. They see a fellow like Tommy Robinson, who is politically incorrect in certain circles, including the ruling class, it would seem, in the UK, who don't want any kind of coverage about, for example, Muslim rape gangs. And so it's literally shoot the messenger time. I don't have all the facts. Ezra's going to be presenting something in his show today. So stay tuned for that because this is a big story. And if what I'm reading is true, this is really an egregious way to shut down Tommy Robinson. And it's like this, folks. It's even if they don't get a criminal conviction, here's the deal. It is monetarily penalizing Tommy. It is saying to Tommy indirectly that, yeah, we may lose in a court of law. We're going to drain you. We're going to drain you for 6 figures. How do you like those apples? Disgusting. Okay, well, folks, Mr. Producer tells me we have to do an ad for Rebel Live, so I am going to hand it over to that. Stay tuned. More of Battleground to come right after this.
We're going to discuss topics that the political elites and the media party don't want us to discuss. Political correctness be damned.
Passion isn't enough of a principle to guide the world by.
Perhaps we are in better touch with the pulse of the country.
We are in this fight with you, and you're all in this fight together.
If you see over the last few years, there's been this populist movement going around the world.
That's the status of the left at this point, is I don't know if you're the Onion or the New York Times.
Postmodernism is a sophisticated philosophy. Now, it's wrong, but it's deeply wrong.
We're simply people with another point of view.
I hope you guys are going to come to the Rebel Live. Less than 2 weeks away, folks. We did this last June. It was a blast. It was a packed house. And, well, you saw that lineup. It's going to be a blast this time around, too. So much to talk about. You're going to be in a friendly environment. So good to go to an event to cover it, or to be the MC in this case, and not get shoved and kicked and spat upon by Antifa or, the usual suspects that we run into on our capers. So, and also I love seeing the people behind the names, see a face behind that name that we come to, get accustomed to with the electronic means of communication. So if you haven't already bought your ticket, please do so. I guarantee you'll have a good time. Actually, I take that back. I shouldn't say I guarantee that, because then you're all going to come to me and go, well, we didn't have a good time. Give me my money back. I'm too poor for that, folks. But I strongly urge you to come to Rebel Live. And I'm pretty sure, 99.9% sure, that you're going to have a great time. Now, we have another super chat. Ezra's first irregulars. Do we have to pay super chats till you let Ezra go? Well, I'm not sure what that means, but we do appreciate any kind of monetary advancement with the super chat. So please keep them coming. So where were we? Also on the election, I have the. I'm really a dinosaur, folks. I still buy the newspapers, the print editions. I'm one of the few left, I suppose. So let's see what's on the front page of today's Toronto Sun. Well, look at that. My journalism teacher at Ryerson back in the day, in the early 80s, he would pass over with he would have a heart attack if he saw this. The front page is an ad. It's an actual ad, and it's for Indochino. They're having, now get this, a red, white, and blue Memorial Day sale. Are we celebrating Memorial Day in this country? I'm not sure. But 1 second, folks. We have another super chat coming in. And I think I missed it, but I'm going to try. Oh, here we are. All right, from Marilyn Nielsen. Here in Alberta, we have private standalone liquor outlets, not corner grocery stores, which are highly successful and serve a double benefit of cutting out overpaid provincial government union employees. Well, as a matter of fact, Marilyn, you've had those for a couple of decades at least. I think the Alberta system went private in the late 80s, if memory serves. That makes it somewhat unique. Elsewhere in Canada, it's either a government monopoly or it's kind of a hybrid. Like in Quebec, you can go to the Dépanier, the corner store there, and buy a bottle of wine or a six-pack of beer. And lo and behold, folks, whenever I go to Quebec and I go to a Dépanier, despite what the critics say, there's not a whole bunch of 14-year-old kids in the parking lot getting drunk on Colt 45. I mean, this is the doom and gloom picture that's always presented when it comes to the thought of the private sector selling booze. And I got to tell you this too, folks. True story. 1986, I was in Santa Barbara, California. A friend of mine put me up for a couple of days. I had driven down from Alberta. I was a reporter in Northeast Alberta at the time. And I wanted to show my friend some gratitude. So I went out to a liquor store in California, in Santa Barbara, to buy a case of Budweiser. And I was challenged and refused, even though my driver's license, it was an Alberta driver's license at the time, clearly showed I was 23. The drinking age is 21, so I'm 2 years over. And what this fellow said to me at the store was, if it's out of state, let alone out of country identification, and you don't look to be over 30, our policy is we do not sell it to you because there are state-run stings. And I believe he said the first time is a warning, the second time is something like a $50,000 fine, the third time, as third strike, you're out. You can't sell alcohol anymore. So basically, what he told me, and another store told me, and a third store told me, was that the profit we're getting off of a case of Budweiser isn't worth our livelihood in case you are part of a sting. I finally got served at a grocery store in Santa Barbara. The cashier had to call the manager, and the manager intently looked at my license, and it was like a life and death decision. He took mercy on me, and that's how I got the case of beer for a friend. But it just goes to show you that the whole idea that the private sector will sell this to a 10-year-old just to make some profit, it is absolute rubbish. So, Marilyn, good for you. Support those local stores in your province. And we have from MD Prelu, the powers that be are counting on the masses being dumbed down and uninformed. Promises. It's funny, MD, that you sent that in. I was driving into Rebel headquarters today, And because traffic barely moves in the GTA at rush hour, every time I was at a signalized intersection, and because it's a gorgeous day in Toronto, it's in the high 20s, and everyone's got their windows down, I'd look around and, I look at people and they're in very nice vehicles, and all I'm hearing is music coming from those vehicles. And here's the thing. When I'm driving, I'm always listening to talk radio. I want to be informed. There's so much in the news right now. And I just looked around at every time I was near another car, it was just tunes coming out. Listen, do the tunes, when you're on your bike ride and you need an adrenaline rush. Do the tunes at the gym, right? But, you got to be informed. There's just so much happening. So I agree with you. There was this voluntary disengagement, I would say, and it just struck me today for no other reason. So your email is very coincidental. And I like this one from Rick Boys 100. Maybe Prince Harry will use his helicopter to get Tommy out. Not sure where the royal family stands in all this. And Sheila Gunn, Sheila, the battleground is great, but it needs more accents. Well, if you know any Sheila with an accent to write in, do so. And Amy Capon says, doubt it, Ricky. And there you go. Now, getting back to the issue at hand, I was showing you the front page of The Sun, which is an ad. Oh, and by the way, the front page of the National Post is an ad too. Same ad. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. I thought that was an American holiday. So what you have to do these days is you have to peel back the front page of a newspaper, which is an ad, kind of like an onion. So we'll get rid of that. And now, this is funny. This is our friend Joe Warmington. His story is Left Hook, and it's about an NDP candidate, Wits Vanderpool. Maybe his name will now be Deadpool if this sticks to his political career. He's an NDP candidate, and evidently he has a penchant for getting involved in the oil wrestling business. There he is with one of the oil wrestlers. This is something I think you see at strip clubs, mud wrestling, oil wrestling. I'm one that avoids strip clubs. I got to tell you, folks. I mean, let me put it to you this way in the cleanest language possible. Me going to a strip club, that would be like bringing a starving homeless man to an all-you-can-eat banquet and saying, you can look at the food, but you can't actually eat anything. Okay, so I just don't see the rationale for that kind of self-inflicted torture, especially at places that I hear have the audacity to charge more than $4 a beer than anyone else would ever dare to do. But, at the end of the day, oil wrestling is not illegal. I'm not quite sure why it's getting the front page treatment. And again, from this candidate's past, I understand. So for me personally, somebody involved in the oil wrestling business, whatever that business is like, that's not a make or break point for me. And so let me hear from you. If you found out that the candidate you were supporting was involved in the oil wrestling business, does that make you change your mind or stay home on election day? So let's see what we have. Reading the newspaper together. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Turbo Jones. And Modern Ginger, Mrs. Menzoid wouldn't be happy if you went. I think she would, actually. And Pilot Barbie, great idea, Turbo. And it goes on. So anyways, that's the front. Now, there's a more serious issue. Also, Joe Warmington has been doing great work on this, and we call it Poppygate. By the way, this is a pet peeve of mine, folks. I mean, going back to the early 70s with the Watergate Hotel, why is it that every scandal in the last almost 50 years has to have the suffix gate attached onto it? I mean, if the Watergate Hotel was simply the Hilton, would we be calling it Poppy Hilton scandal? So isn't it time to retire Gate, or is this going to live on forever? But we have a candidate. Joe Warmington broke this story. Laura Kaminker. She won't wear a poppy. She doesn't. She goes off on. By the way, this is a librarian. You'd expect a librarian to be well read. That doesn't appear to be the case. To her, it's all about glorifying war. It's all about, the industrial military complex. She goes on and on. You don't have to wear a poppy, and it's your right not to wear a poppy, and it's your right to speak out against a poppy. The irony that seems lost on Laura and others of her ilk is that if there wasn't such bloodshed on the battlefield, millions of men sacrificing their lives, you wouldn't have this freedom. You would be in a totalitarian state. That never seems to dawn on them. They can't connect those dots, folks. But Joe has a follow-up story, and here it is, the NDP leader, Andrea Horwath. She is at a Remembrance Day ceremony, and will you look at that? I'm not sure what point of the ceremony this is. Please not let it be the minute of silence. But she is texting away on her phone. Now, folks, I'll say this. Whenever you're in a place that's not appropriate to have a cell phone, turn it off, put it on vibrate, put it in your back pocket. Unless you are a surgeon on call and you're expecting something to come in, from the ER that you're needed right away, don't take out your phone. Andrea, you could have waited, I'm sure, another couple of minutes before addressing whatever that text was about. But that is shameful. At a Remembrance Day ceremony, that is sacred. I mean, it's still sacred now. Maybe things will change in the generations to come. But right now, that's despicable, and don't do that. Put away your devices. So let's see what else we have. Prophet 111, Liberal ship is sinking. NDP is taking all the rats jumping overboard. Oh, they are. And it's the funny thing is, Prophet, is that going back to the last election, certainly, you almost felt sorry for Andrea Horwath, and I say that was kind of with tongue in cheek, but the Liberal platform actually was left of center of the NDP. I know of, I guess you could call them classical Liberals that look at the Premier Win agenda and they say, hey, this is not what I've signed up for. This is not what I wanted. So the idea of a Liberal rat jumping ship to the NDP, they're almost interchangeable. In fact, I believe it was the Elementary School Teachers Federation, that big public sector union, which was in bed with the Liberals. They've endorsed the NDP. And again, it kind of goes back to Tanya Granigallen, right? I mean, what have you done for me lately? They see where the Liberal fortunes are headed. And even though Kathleen Wynne and her predecessor, Dalton McGuinty, were so beholden to the teachers and their unions, suddenly it's, we kind of like the shade of orange right now in 2018. Yeah, orange is the new red. So there you go. There is no loyalty. And Evan Sauer writes, silent majority just like the US when they elected Trump. You know what, Evan? I can't argue that point. You might be right. And this speaks to the quality of polling today. There are so many polls. I mean, when you see these polls, these are not very expensive, deep drilling polls. A lot of these are generated by robocalls. I got one the other day, and it said, press 1 for this candidate, press 2 for this candidate. The fact of the matter is, I could have been a visitor to Ontario. I could have been a child, a minor who doesn't have the right to vote. I could have just game the system by purposely choosing, for whatever reason, a candidate, I have no affiliation with. Also, I'm just wondering too, even if there are people that are going, not crazy about Doug Ford, but and maybe I should give Andrea a chance. She's never had a chance. Maybe they'll have that proverbial come to Jesus moment when they're in the poll booth and, push comes to shove, and maybe that, X moves down from the NDP to the PCs. Maybe that's going to happen. There'll be this realization before it's too late. So we'll see. Certainly that was the deal with Trump, right? On election night, we were told by all the pundits, too close to call, and we know what happened. All right. Let's see. We have from Hamish Ekshel. This guy is so full of blank cakes. Are you talking about me? Holy mackerel. I'm trying here. And again, we have from Faye Knox, he screwed himself with real conservatives when he threw Tanya under the bus. I agree that, and we have addressed that. And again from Evan Sauer, MD Pro, I live in Scarborough and it is bad here. Pilot Barbie, David, people who do not remember Bob Ray is our greatest threat. Well, yeah, but like I said, given what kind of damage the McGuinty-Wynne Liberals have done, Bob Ray, by comparison, almost looks like a fiscal conservative. We have a situation in this province, given the deficit and the debt, where our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are going to be on the hook. And this has to be addressed. And right now, in terms of, I guess, a fiscal mandate, you've got to give that one to the PCs if you care about a fiscal mandate. And we have from, let's see, John Zealand. The thinking is if you have lived under a rock, you would give the dippers a look. Evan Sauer again, NDP is going full socialist to beat the Liberals. We must not let that happen. That is true. And yep, the turfing of Tanya was a very bad move. That's from Christian Patriot. Wayne Johnson, Tommy, I get it. And a clarification from Hamish. It is Justin Trudeau that is the blank cake. Don't eat one of those. You'll get E. coli. Blake Runner, what's going on in Mississauga with the restaurant bombing? Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's another story that broke late last night. There were two separate birthday parties, I believe, happening in a Mississauga restaurant. Some men walked in with improvised exploding devices, set them off. Nobody died, thank goodness. They're on the hunt for them. The police, as of an hour ago, they haven't said if this is a hate crime, if this is an act of terrorism, if it's a personal vendetta. So, yeah, there was a bomb that was set off at a Mississauga restaurant. And what was really despicable about this, folks, was that there were children in that restaurant. So let's count our blessings that nobody perished in that attack. And, I have to read this. Amanda Joy, we love you, David. Well, thank you, Amanda. I love you too. And from VZIX, never vote NDP. You know, I agree. I can never bring myself with their socialistic bent to vote NDP. I think it's a recipe for fiscal disaster. And with this pronouncement of a sanctuary province, I mean, folks, I'm not anti-immigration. If you want to come here legally, that's fantastic. But you just, if a country doesn't have the right to enforce its own borders, it's simply not a country anymore. It really isn't. I mean, what is a country other than a sovereign state that has borders around it in which to say this landmass from here, 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 and here is our country, the Dominion of Canada. And on the broader picture, this summer, they are actually predicting 400 refugee claimants per day coming over from the U.S. into Canada. There's been a huge spike in visas in the U.S. applied for by Nigerians. And the plan, of course, is not to reside or to become an illegal in the U.S. The point is to get into the U.S. and then to go across a non-recognized border crossing and get arrested, and then the refugee process kicks in. I'm still waiting, and if anyone can educate me on this, I'm still waiting to understand why this grotesque, glaring loophole in this Border Act was allowed in the first place, i.e., as long as you're not coming in from a recognized border crossing, you can claim refugee status. And the truth of the matter, folks, is there's no political will on either side of the border to get rid of that loophole. If you're the Trump administration, hey, if illegals are fleeing out of the U.S., bon voyage. And if you're Justin Sunnyways Trudeau, hey, come on down. Canada's open for business. We don't care who you are, where you're from, or rather, what you believe in. Come on over the border. So I don't see the loophole being closed. Already in Toronto, we have college dorms that are vacant, at least until after Labor Day when the kids get back to college, that have refugee claimants in them. We actually have a hockey rink with refugee claimants in it. Again, by the end of August, the ice goes back into that rink. So with these hockey rinks, with these college dorms that are temporary refugee and migrant claimant stations, what happens as we head towards autumn when we don't have those facilities? Are we going to see the construction of tent cities? Are we going to see, Sky Dome commissioned into a refugee holding pen like Montreal's Olympic Stadium was once the Blue Jay season is over? These are profound and practical questions we have to ask. And like I said, just wait until we get those numbers of 300 or 400 people a day coming here. I don't know what's going to happen, folks. And we have from Jack Sheet, I suppose. I'd like to see Ford for PM, Kevin for Premier of Ontario. I guess that's Kevin the Jackal Johnson. Wow, what a 1-2 punch that would be. And Lauren Southern says, Venezuela is coming here unless Trump builds the wall. Yeah, it might already be here, Lauren. And we have from Cloud9 Ninja, Canada is well on its way to becoming Venezuela. And I just missed the rest of that. I got to take that Evelyn Woodhead speed reading course again, folks. And let's see. Ezra recommends 24 Sussex for the migrants. You know what? I'm only saying this half jokingly. Would we be that cruel? 24 Sussex, folks, is a dump. And there is no real reason to keep it. It's been a dump for decades. And I feel sorry, even for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who doesn't really live there, for all the prime ministers that have to go there, because it is in need of a retrofit. Yet no prime minister would ever dare spend the millions required to do the retrofit, because that is political suicide. So why don't we just demolish it and build it again? And here we have Ezra's first irregulars. Oh, no, I think I did that one already. Okay, then. Do we have to pay super chats till... Oh, sorry. Keep up the good work. As this chat open to all. I think that's what it said. I'm hearing a voice in my ear, folks. Okay, and going back. So anyways, I don't know if you have any passionate opinions of 24 Sussex Drive. It is not our White House, contrary to public belief. And maybe we should just call in the demolition man. Yeah, let's tear down 24 Sussex Drive and keep the Pickering nuclear generating station running. And Pilot Barbie writes again, but David, 24 Sussex is better than a lot of what these migrants are used to. That is true. Charlie Times, can't we just drone Mexico? I don't know what we would drone it for. Send the migrants to Justin's current residence. I'm gonna play my hand a bit on a caper that I've sort of got in the works. We went earlier this month, my cameraman Efren and I, to Young Dundas Square, and we were talking about the number of migrants in Quebec, where the government there is saying, do you want to go to Ontario? And if they say yes, guess what? They're on a bus to Ontario. And typically they're coming to Toronto, of course. And we asked people on the street, would you take in a refugee? Would you take in a migrant claimant? And the vast majority of people said yes. Now, here's the difference between what people say and what people do. because I think we should do that Q&A at Yonge Dundas Square in Toronto again. But for anyone who says yes, we'll have an actor pretending to be a migrant with a packed suitcase, and we'll say, hey, Jimmy, we got to take her. And then we'll see the excuses come out. Well, you know what, I have to run it by the missus, and well, I didn't mean right this instant. I got to fix up the basement apartment, So stay tuned for that one. I think that could be very comical and really put to the test what people say and what people do are two different kettles of fish. And we have from Andrew, let the Liberal MPs take in all these illegals and Antifa can take some too. Well, certainly not Antifa. Antifa already occupy the basement of their mothers and grandmothers, so there is no room for the refugee. These cats at Antifa, they don't have jobs, my friend. So they're already a migrant claimant in their own country, if you will. And ever been assaulted during Jen Trudeau? That's from Zed Hero. No, actually, that's not quite true. About a month ago, we were doing a Generation Trudeau After Dark. And for some reason, there was a surly fellow, and we moved on from him. And then later, he came behind me. And it was my Me Too moment, folks. He tried to pull my pants down. I was really creeped out by that, but thank goodness I had my belt really notched in tightly. Other than that, we get verbal assaults. Typically, it's the de rigueur and really quite boring. Effer right in the you-know-where. That happens on a routine basis. And I'm always surprised that it happens because we've had people outed when it happens in other media outlets and they've been suspended or they've lost their job, and they continue to do it. Another super chat. Hi, Menzoid, love the pretend migrant idea. Well, thank you so much. I consider that vouching for that pitch, and as soon as my producer gives me the green light and as soon as I get an appropriate actor, I think it would be great if we just got some real hulking brute of a guy, somebody that was actually physically intimidating, and maybe we could gin it up. Like the first things out of his words are, the first words out of his mouth rather are, I like to eat dinner at 6:30 sharp. I'd like to see the virtue signalers say, yeah, come on back to Leaside. We'll put you up in the spare room. And what else do we have? I'm still triggered over the last monk debate. That's, I don't know which one that is that you're referring to. And Justin Trudeau just wants his ass pounded. I don't advocate that, of course. And we need a David Menzoid in Quebec. This province is an untapped resource. Good work, David. Well, you know what? I would love to go to La Belle Province for a caper. I remember when I was with Sun News, the head honchos there flew me out for one day. It was to, we were asking people on the street if they had actually seen Jean Charest's testicles. Thankfully, we didn't bring a poster portraying that. But Quebecers have a good sense of humor, at least the ones that weighed in. And I would love to come to Montreal or Quebec City. My French is terrible. Actually, it's non-existent, but I find even in Quebec City, you can get by as an Anglophone, no problemo. And Lauren Southern, when are we going to see Lady Menzoid again? Well, I guess the last appearance was, let me think now, it was last July when I went to try out as a Raptors cheerleader. And the reason why, the reason for that, folks, was it wasn't just to be goofy and, out of the box, although we were embracing that. But it was because the NDP, Freudian slip, the NBA had stripped the All-Star game last year away from Charlotte because of the North Carolina bathroom bill. You know, that crazy legislation that says if you're a man, go to the men's room. If you're a woman, go to the women's room. Anyways, I thought it was terribly unfair to the Charlotte franchise to see that happen because they had no say in the matter. So we just wanted to see if that the NDP is virtue signaling that it's trans friendly and we love the transgender community. Would they put up with, an obvious fake woman? I mean, me in short shorts and a sports bra trying out for a Raptors cheerleader spot? Well, to the credit of the Toronto Raptors, I went through this. It was really the most bizarre assignment I was on. I felt like such a loser. I was in the Air Canada Centre with, I would say, 300 of the most beautiful and most physically fit women I have ever seen in my life. The vast majority looking towards me like a skunk had just wandered over to the garden party. I mean, here we have these fantastic, beautiful athletes, and here's me, Herman Munster, in a miniskirt trying out. But you know what? I didn't get the gig. I went through with the tryout, didn't make it. But you know, if the Raptors, even if they knew this was a caper, even if they knew this was a goof, here's what I would have done if I was on the marketing department. I'd say, hire that guy or gal or whatever that person is, a spirit unicorn. Hire that thing because we will get millions of dollars of free publicity. The transgender barrier has been shattered, much like Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball like 70 years ago. So the Raptors missed a golden opportunity for millions of dollars of free publicity. What can I say? I tried. Anyways, moving on. Glenn DeCoker says, some with outdoor fires, you can't have campfire after 6 p.m. and if cooking, must put out as soon as food done. I don't know what that means, but I will take it under advisement. Who wears short shorts? David wears short shorts. That's from Goatman. Well, it was part of the requirement. You had to wear shorts and you had to wear a top that would show your midriff. And that was particularly embarrassing for me. Let's put it this way. I like to say I have a washboard stomach. It just has about 18 pounds of laundry on it right now, folks. So it was not a pretty picture. And what else do we have? Same with Hamish. I'd love to make some of those whiny social justice warrior feminists and men pay for so much. You know, I wonder how we make them pay. On a more serious note, you're probably all familiar with what happened to Faith Goldie, who used to be here at the Rebel, last weekend at the Quebec-New York border. You had Antifa, and please, go onto our website. Sheila Gunn-Reid has an excellent report on this, and certainly a person who is more qualified than anyone to weigh in on this, her being a right-of-center female journalist that was also physically assaulted by a creep of a man. But Faith was spat upon, she was kicked, she was pushed, she was shoved. She had her camera knocked out of her hands by a gang. And that's what they are, a gang of thugs, Antifa, most of whom are wearing masks. That's how brave these men are. I use men in quotation marks. And the accomplice to this event, folks, was, of course, the mainstream media that reveled in this. They were actually tweeting. There was a CBC journalist, and this man tweeted that the highlight of that protest and counter-protest last weekend was seeing Faith Goldie given a warning by the Quebec police about using her cell phone while driving. Yeah, because you know what? Distracted driving, that was the real law enforcement issue last weekend. Not, a woman that weighs maybe 120 pounds being physically assaulted. It was despicable. Shame on the Quebec police. And I'm not a police basher. Blue lives matter to me. Anyone that knows me knows how I feel about that. But these guys didn't lift a pinky finger to help Faith. And shame on the media that for some reason thought it was so hilarious to watch a right-of-center woman get battered around like that. Shame on them both. And I see we have, a minute to go. Wow. You know what, folks? Time flies. This was my first time guest hosting for Ezra Levant on Battleground. They say you always remember your first time. I want to thank you so much for weighing in, and special thanks to all those that paid for the super chat. We got to keep this operation running. And I want to wish you all a great weekend. Despite what the National Post, here's fake news on the front page. It is not Memorial Day weekend, folks. It's just a regular holiday. At least here in Ontario it is. We had Victoria Day last weekend. So to one and all, have a great weekend. And remember, folks, without risk, there can be no glory. Good day.